What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, Episode 18, Blood, Bugs, and Everchosen. The Battle Mallet Podcast is a podcast delving into the minds of four busy gamers, their annual journey to the Nova Open Convention, playing games that they love, and balancing life with those games. I'm Jerod Johnson, and I'm here, and it's just me and my buddy Tres Hyde.
We're a two-man band.
I called lead guitarist.
You would.
I would. You're right.
You would do that.
So Danny is back from all of his travels, but still kind of getting his life together with, buying a house and being married and all that stuff. And then our buddy Jason is probably sleeping off his work trip to Jamaica. So
Yep.
It's just going to be me and Trace tonight. And we've got just a few things to get through that, recent events and recent content that's been released that we want to talk about. So both Trace and I...
abbreviated episode.
Yeah, it might be, it'll make up for the last episode. So
Yes.
It'll all balance out, right?
Yeah.
So we recently went to an Underworlds tournament at the Game Theory in Raleigh, which is one of the local stores that we play at. So Trace and I will talk about that. And then on the 40K side, the Blood of Baal has been released. Chapter Approved was released. So this is we're recording on December 9th. So Blood of Baal and Chapter Approved were just released this past weekend. And the Age of Sigmar, Slaves to Darkness, new Battletome and Endless Spells and models went up for pre-order this past weekend. So We've got all that to cover. But before we get into that, what's everybody been up to? Trace.
You and me.
Yes.
Well, like you said, we played a tournament a couple weeks ago. I actually have played a session of Dungeons and Dragons.
What? That's not Games Workshop.
I know. I don't know what's wrong with me. No, it's really fun. A really good friend of mine from where I grew up invited me to a game, and I said, yeah, I should be able to do that. And I said, how often are we going to be playing? He was like, well, right now it's like once a month. I was like, I can do once a month probably, but need to, make sure that the timing and everything is correct.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. So we won't talk a lot about that because not everybody likes D&D, and that's cool. But I've been playing around, pilling around just different projects and stuff, painting up some demons, painting up my Rippus Snarlfangs, which are coming along nicely.
Yeah, they look really good. The pictures you shared in the group chat, the war paint that you got on them looks great. So I can't wait for you to get them finished and kind of share them out so everybody can see.
I sure will. I'll do that, but I'm not going to share any work in progress pics with everybody just yet. Planning on going to that tournament on the 21st that Brandon's hosting, so trying to get them done for that.
And that's at that computer store in Columbia, right?
That's correct, yep.
Columbia, South Carolina, not like Columbia, South America. That would be a heck of a trip.
And I would be afraid that I would get abducted.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, just been working on those. And then I'm working on a little secret project that I will not disclose at this time. Yep. And then also trying to come up with a recipe for some ogre skin that I really want to get them on the table because I know we challenge each other to try and get some stuff done.
You have 15 days.
I do.
No. Is that right?
Yes.
That is right. Yeah. 15 days until Christmas.
Yes.
16 days.
Yes.
You got this.
You've seen me paint fast stuff before.
I was going to say, if you can figure out the skin formula, I feel like you might be done with... How many models do you have to paint?
I have 6 Ogre Gluttons, 2 Lead Belchers, and a Lord and a scrap launcher to do.
Okay.
So it won't it's not
10 total models.
Yes, but
okay. Yeah, but I mean the details and all that on them is especially that tyrant.
It's pretty cool.
He is chock-a-block full of detail.
Yeah, he is. So yeah. So what about you? What have you been doing?
So I got all of my Mortek guard painted from the Feast of Bones, and I'm really pleased with the formula that I came up with them. It's just a really simple use of contrast for, I'm going to call it like 90% of the model. Just using the Black Templar for the black bone and using Basilicanum Gray for like the ivory bone, like the pale gray bone, Blood Angels Red for the red shields, and then I could probably have done a cleaner job. The blades are black with purple edge highlights, and so they're probably not as clean as they could be, but because I'm not slopping paint on like I used to 20 years ago when I first started painting models, the highlights are thin. So if I want to go back and just repaint the blades black and redo the edge highlights, in purple, I like the purple. I like the way that it looks. They're just really chunky highlights. But that's it. And then, some gold, and then green for the cloth. So the black blades, the gold kind of inset piece on the shields, and then the green cloth for their tabards. That's it. That's the only thing that's, I guess, the quote classic end quote method. Everything else has been contrast. And
you got some really nice color complement on there too, because your red complements your green, your nice like green, and then your yellow is a nice complement to your orange or your blue, your purple. So working that color wheel, bud.
I'm trying. And I'm trying to do this thing where I come up with a simple formula that gets results that I'm happy with quickly. Just given my limited amount of hobby time as of late, I would rather get things finished than not. And painting up the Blades of Corn for our Age of Sigmar doubles for Nova kind of really helped me figure out quick techniques and how to quickly do effective edge highlighting without feeling like I needed to blend 3 different paints into
you can always
9
come back
different
and do that
layers
later.
And that's the other thing, is that with the way that I did the contrast, I think that there is room for me to pull edges up later if I want. But what is nice is the easy formula is going to translate super quickly, I think, into the 3 Necropolis Stalkers that I have to paint, and then the 2 Morghast, and then Vakmortian. And what I need to figure out is whether I want to paint Vakmortian as Petrifex Elite, which is what the rest of them are going to be, or if I want to take the time and go back and paint him as the Praetorus, which is what his kind of subfaction is. But either way I do it, I think I'll be able to do it quickly. It's just going to be finding the time in the next 16 days to get that knocked out. So hopefully they'll be done before Christmas. But so I got those painted, and then I put a little bit of paint on the Wild Hunt. Just experimented with contrast and with some colors that I don't normally paint. So like an olive green and some more reds and browns, just colors that I don't normally paint.
You were kind of hard on them, dude, but I thought they looked good. Like just for they're a contrast paint job, but
I think the problem is that I know what I'm capable of.
Of course.
When I really spend the time on it, and so I look at this, and it's totally. It's probably tabletop plus, realistically. But I know that if I really put my mind to it, I could do better. So it's hard to call it, like a good job. But I guess calling it heart garbage was probably a little much.
It was a little rough.
But and then the other thing that I've been doing is I picked up Flight of the Eisenstein when I was in Sweden. So at the Stockholm Warhammer store, it's hard to go into a shop and not buy something. So I bought, a couple of little things, and I saw Flight of the Eisenstein sitting there on the shelf. It is not in Swedish, so all of their
That's good.
all of their content is printed in English. So I picked it up while I was there, and have, finally gotten around to starting reading it, and it's been interesting to read something pre-heresy that it dives into a character that I know is integral to one of the factions that I currently play now.
That you love.
Yep. So nothing that, as far as I have seen, there has been no heresy yet. So they have gotten to Istvan, and that's where I am. So I'm excited to see, because intellectually I know, just because I've heard bits of the lore, I know what's going to happen, but it's been interesting to kind of get, I don't know, I guess you could call it like a first person view of the events, as opposed to reading about it online or hearing it in conversation or whatever.
Well, and Aaron Dembski-Bowden does such a good job of just creating compelling characters. So just following Garrow and knowing what all he's going through is just a really cool concept.
So point of order, Flight of the Eisenstein is not actually an ADB book. So the author is James Swallow.
Oh, I thought it was Dembski-Bowden.
But I think ADB picks up some of the other Garrow books.
I thought it was him that read that one first.
No,
I could be completely wrong. Yeah. I guess I am.
Yep, and that's okay. Good. I mean, it's not like
still
there are 3 Horus Heresy authors. I think it's an easy mistake to make. Because if you had asked me before I had it in front of my face and was reading it, I'd have been like, oh yeah, that's ADB, right? But it's still good. Characterizations are still really good. It's interesting to hear people describe Mortarion.
Oh yeah.
Before the change, because my experience with Mortarion in reading has been in the Plague Wars books. So the 2
Demon
novels.
Mortarion. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Demon Prince Mortarion.
Very different.
Yeah. So it's been interesting to hear that, to see. So there, I don't know, the first captain's name is Typhon. I don't know if that's any related to Typhus. I know that it's related to Typhus. But to see these, icons of 40K lore in their pre-heresy kind of personas has been interesting. So, so
Typhon, far, he's a real jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, he stays a jerk, but
yep.
He's definitely still a jerk in the pre-heresy.
Yeah.
So, but it's that's a really good one. I think is the one after that one. I can't remember. Is it Fulgrim after that?
I think Fulgrim is after that one. Yes.
That's a really interesting read too. So,
I'm sure.
I would recommend reading it after you read Flight of the Eisenstein.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
It's a harder read because it's a little slower to begin.
Right.
But when it ramps up,
yeah,
it's good. Anyway, so that's awesome. What else?
I think that's it as far as kind of any real hobby progress in the games that we played at Game Theory, which we'll get into in the next section. But I think other than that, I think that's it.
Cool.
Yeah. So you got to figure out a skin technique.
Yep.
That sounds really bad.
Well,
you got to figure out a paint scheme for the skin on your ogres. That sounds better. And I got to finish
skin technique better.
Yeah. I mean, I think our listeners will too. And I got to paint those Mortek guards. So 16 days. we'll report back. Keep
Yep.
an eye on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks. Hopefully there'll be some pictures up soon of us having finished painting models.
Yes.
And then the only other thing that I want to shout out before we get into the rest of the episode here is that December 12th, so that's Thursday.
This Thursday
At 6 p.m., myself and Trace and Jason are all going to be at Atomic Empire in Durham, North Carolina. I'll be there probably a little before 6, but the plan is to be there from 6 to 11 to kind of have an open Underworlds play. So if you are in the Triangle area and you want to check out Warhammer Underworlds, come find us at Atomic Empire on Thursday. If you play regularly and you just want to get some games in, come out. If you've got a deck that you're testing, if you're headed to a tournament sometime coming up and you want to test a deck out, come out. I'll have all my models, all my cards, so I can, and I'll have a couple of decks on hand that I can put together if you want an intro game or if you want, to play against something that's going to be more competitive or what have you. And I know Jason and Trace will be ready to do the same. So
Jason's got a bunch of painted warbands to play
yeah,
with.
he does. Yeah, so you not only will you be getting an intro game or a fun game in, but you might get to play with some really well painted models if you don't have any of your own. So that's December 12th. So Thursday, December 12th at Atomic Empire in Durham from 6, and then they close at 11 on Thursdays, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we'll be there probably till close or until everybody leaves, whichever happens first.
And they have beer if you're
They do
interested.
have beer. That's right. Yeah, coming up on the holidays, kind of. Oh, and we're gonna have some. I think some fun
knickknacks,
giveaways,
some holiday knickknacks.
So some door prizes and participation awards and all sorts of fun stuff. So we hope to see you guys there. So yeah, we'll take a break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the Underworld tournament.
And welcome back. So Jerod, you and I attended a fun little skirmish tournament at our local game shop that we play at quite frequently, Game Theory, here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And there was 6 people? We had 6 players. I think
6 players. Yep.
5 different warbands is what I remember.
Yep.
We had a Thundrik player, 2 Grimwatch players. You were playing Skaith's Wild Hunt. I played Rippo's Snarl Things, which were a ton of fun. And we had, what was the other one? Banshees. We had Banshees
Lady Hero's Mournflight. Yep.
Lady Hero's Mournflight. So I guess why don't you just walk us through your games and kind of how things went for you?
Yeah, so I had the esteemed pleasure of playing both of the Grimwatch players.
I played one.
Yeah. So first off, before we get into this, I just want to say thanks to Brandon for running the event and thanks to Game Theory for supplying, the prize support. So they get the organized play kits and are very generous with the contents. So this was kind of I think Brandon pulled some of the content from the Q4 kit for Night Vault, and then some of the content from the Q1 kit for Beastgrave.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was cool. So I think he gave out the charge and
he gave out the alternate art.
Oh, the alternate art cards.
The alternate art cards from the previous set, and then also the alternate art Amberbone Hammer.
The Amberbone Hammer, and then the wound tokens from the Night Vault.
Yep, the Q4 kit. Yep.
Yeah. So just thanks again to Brandon for running the event and putting it together and letting everybody show up and have a good time. So speaking of Brandon, my first opponent was Brandon. He was playing Grimwatch, and I was running Skaith's Wild Hunt. And it's just a testament to the, I think, number one, to Brandon as a player, and number two, to the potency of the kinds of decks that you can build with Grimwatch, because I took the Duke out in the 3rd activation of activation phase 1.
Ooh.
So did a cheeky Althaeon bow shot into pit trap and snare onto a lethal hex for 4 total damage. Yeah, it was super cheeky.
Ew, that's
It is
gross.
not what you expect to happen when you move the Duke forward just a little bit so that he's in a great position for activation phase 2. But it just so happened that it worked out in my favor. But even with all of that, the final score of the game was 12-11 in my favor. So he was still able to deny me a lot of glory and still score 11 glory, even without the Duke. So without the ability to beat down, without the ability to, bring the ghouls back. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was bananas. So that was fun. So I won that one, and then my second game was against the other Grimwatch player, Ike. And so for anybody that remembers, the last tournament that we played in at Game Theory was for Glass, and Ike took me down in round 1. It was his Thundrik's Profiteers into my Yotharis, and he beat me by 1 or 2 points, I think. So I would say that I got my revenge, but there's a running joke. It's like Ike's dice just turn off whenever he plays against me. And
you are Jason at this point, actually.
Yeah, and I just take all of those successes, and there's some additive property there that just turns all of my successes into crits. So it just, when we rolled off to see who got to choose boards, just that very first die roll of the game, I had 2 crits and a single support, and Ike's reaction was like, "Oh, so this is how this is gonna go." But he's always a great opponent. He's very gracious and is just a ton of fun to play against. So I took that one fairly handily. I don't remember the exact score. And so it was at this point that I was 2-0, and friend of the show, Steven Cavanis, was 2-0 as well. And so we met at the top table, and he was running a Tomes Thundrik's Profiteers deck. And the kind of glaring flaw in the Wild Hunt of their middling damage just it reared its ugly head.
Yep.
Yeah. And so between, being able to plink 2 to 3 damage at a time and 3 failed attacks on a tomed up Thundrik in the final activation phase meant that despite my lead going into the scoring, Steven was able to cap out. I think he ended up scoring 8 glory in the final end phase. So he had 6 tomes, and he scored 2 other glory from something else. So going into the final round, I think it was maybe like 14, 12, like 13, 12 in my favor, and I scored 2 more glory to take me to 15, and then he dropped 8 glory down to get up to 20. So
as a Tom deck does.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess I can't do anything about that. But it was fun, and it just goes to show that I've got some work to do if I'm going to play the Wild Hunt, or I need to find something else to play. But it was fun. I had a good time. And kudos to Steven. He's been working on that Profiteers deck for a long time, and I think he's pretty happy with what he settled on. So,
yeah, he should be. I can tell you that because I played him as well.
How'd that go?
About as you expect for Ripa to go into Thundrik's.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't bad. I had a really Steven was my first opponent. And I had some really good draws, but just 2 crucial whiffs. And he did the same thing to me, where he's getting his glory up, and then right at the end of the game, he drops like 10 glory or something like that. Just all at the same time. But yeah, it was a good game. He was my first opponent. Jerod kind of already spoke to his deck and kind of how it works, and so I won't get back into that again. But I like playing Steven. He's a good opponent. He's a really good player. And he's always a really fun person to play with too. Like he's just real lighthearted, which is always good. But so that was my first game. My second game, I played Brandon, and I had some really crucial combos go off in that game, and nice. So it was good because playing Rippas is a different kind of deck for me because like it's like playing Mollog but with less utility. So I'm used to playing like the one wonder fighter warbands, but with Rippa you have to be really, really patient, and that's something that I'm like learning, just slow and steady. But so Brandon, I did not kill the Duke on turn 1 like Jerod did, but I did manage to get Rippa kind of centrally placed and baited a couple attacks and used some of the nice cards that are in the Snarl Fangs to get some free activations and stuff like that, which was nice. Killed Gristlewell with a reaction. There was a little bit of a discussion about whether or not I could use Furious Reprisal and him still get the push and therefore Pit Trap off. I finally just, even though I knew it was wrong, I conceded it and I was just like, let's just play, man. I'm not going to argue with you. Let's just keep going. Ended up winning the game by like, I think it was like 23-12, something like that. Because killing fighters is what Rippas does, and there's a lot of fighters in Grimwatch. So
2 health, 1 dodge. That's an ideal target for Rippa Snarl Fangs.
Absolutely, especially when you can get some extra activations going. So that was my second game, and then my third game played against a new guy on the scene. His name's Adam, and he was playing his Lady Heroes Mournflight, which is a hard matchup for Rippa as well. I had really terrible draws that game. And so I got an early glory and got up just a little bit, but after that, my draws just went really, really bad, and I just could not recover. Had a crucial whiff that I needed to go off. Even with extra dice and a reroll, like it still just didn't connect, and that was unfortunate. But Adam played really well. Like he played cagey and kind of picked me off one fighter at a time, and I ended up losing that game like something like 12-8 or something like that. It wasn't a giant difference, but it was a good game. Like, and Adam played really well, and I'm looking forward to playing with him more because he seems like he's a real cerebral kind of player. And but yeah, so that was kind of my experience. Always looking forward to more opportunities to try out new things with Underworlds, and so like Jerod said, like we just appreciate the opportunity to play at Game Theory and the ability to get some fun swag along the way.
Yep. It was good. I think Adam went on he ended up bumping above me to get second place.
Yep.
Because of glory differential too, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played really well. I was impressed. And so since then, like, you know, I'm working on my Rippa's deck. I'm working on painting them and just really trying to figure them out because I like the aesthetic of them, and I just like the warband. I think it's a cool warband. So
yeah,
just kind of keep going with them for a little while and see what happens.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know. I like the hunt. I like the models. I think the problem that I'm running into is the same problem that I was running into with the Yotharis after the magic nerf, is that 3 health fighters and nobody getting 3 damage without just dumping a ton of upgrades in is a tough place to be. And I know that there is success to be had there. I just have not figured out how to do that yet. So I don't know if I'm going to stick with the hunt or switch to something else. I'll be, I don't think I've played the Despoilers at all. Played a couple of games with Grimwatch, so I don't know. Maybe I'll do a couple of rounds with the Despoilers and see if I can figure something out there, and then, just gotta try to play around until I find something that fits and is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to see what you do with the Despoilers. I think that they might be kind of a sweet spot for you between the Grimwatch and some of the things that you can do with Scathe too. So,
yep.
Looking forward to it. So that'll wrap us up for this section. Hopefully we'll get some more content out about the meetup that we're going to do on Thursday. If you are able to come, we would love to see you. And until then, take a break. See you in a minute.
And we're back. And we're going to talk about Warhammer 40k. So not something that we've spent a lot of time on lately. But there's been a lot of content that's been coming out around it. And I know that I am personally excited by some of the points changes from Chapter Approved and some of the content that came out from the Blood of Baal Psychic Awakening Book 3. So there was some Tyranid content in there. So that's pretty exciting. And I know there was some good stuff that came out for those heretics from Chapter Approved. So why don't we start there? Trace, Chapter Approved, impressions, thoughts, comments, concerns?
All my stuff got cheaper. I like it.
Nice.
That's in a nutshell kind of what happened.
You were talking about your 1,000-point list that you ran in the campaign is now what?
I didn't calculate up the points, but it's much cheaper.
Yeah.
So some of the key units that got decreases were like Chaos Space Marines. They went down to 11 points a model, which is crazy good.
That is dirt cheap.
Still not as cheap as the Cultists, which went back down to 4 points.
Well, that's probably good.
But they needed to.
They don't have orders. They don't have.
Yeah. They don't get to use the Legion traits anymore.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff. So it's only fair that they go back down to the cheapest chips, 4 points that they were originally. But really excited about that. Really, I was really surprised, honestly, that the Lord Discordant didn't go up in points. It stayed the same. And then a lot of stuff just got cheaper. Abaddon got cheaper. Just Obliterators got cheaper. They went down. They dropped like 20 points or something like that per model.
Yeah.
Which is really good because they're like a really good fire-based unit for you.
Yep.
They can be aggressive because they can deep strike and do all this other fun stuff. But
and if you were taking 3 of them, that's 60 points you've now saved.
Yeah. So, and then some of the, rules and stuff that were in Faith and Fury actually kind of supplemented a lot of the legions too. So those have been fun to read. The demon weapons are awesome.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Obviously, like just stuff getting cheaper for chaos is great. That's really the nuts and bolts of it for me. Nice. What about you?
Yeah, so we'll start with Tyranid. So not a ton of point drops on the Tyranid side. I run typically a High Fleet Jormungandr, which means I've got Trigons and Trigon Primes and the massive Scything Talons, the triple set or whatever that you purchased for them went down like 10 points each or something.
Oh, wow.
And they got a points drop. Those models both got a points drop in Chapter Approved 2018 as well. So those guys are all cheaper. One thing that I am excited about is Tyranid Warriors are now 2 points cheaper a piece.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty good. And then there were, I think, some other points drops on some things that either aren't as relevant or I don't own them or whatever. Not a ton of points changes on the Tyranid side, but so the Blood of Baal, Psychic Awakening Book 3, had some content for the Tyranid. One of the cool things is that you have these adaptive mutations. So for anybody that's not familiar, if your Warlord is a Tyranid character, instead of taking a Warlord trait, you can upgrade one unit. And so there are different adaptations, depending on whether you're an infantry model or a monster model. And so some of those things are like there's like a camouflage one. So you count, you get a double bonus for being in cover. So +2 to your armor save instead of +1.
Oh, wow. That's really good.
Well, and that would pair really nicely with Jormungandr,
yeah,
which
you're always in
counts
cover.
always being in cover. And so imagine putting that on Tyranid Warriors. Well, now you have Tyranid Warriors, T4, 3 wound, 2 up save.
Nice.
That are all 2 points cheaper now. So that's cool.
Too bad we play with the Crimson Fist player who ignores cover.
Yeah, right. And then so there were some other ones in there where I think you could get an infantry model. This may be a stratagem. I think it's a stratagem, actually, where you ignore AP -1 and AP -2. So you can play it once per game when you're targeted by a shooting attack, and you get to ignore AP1, AP1 and 2.
It's been a theme here recently, too.
Yeah.
That's been a kind of almost a universal stratagem, but it's just been given to a bunch of people.
Right.
Which is good. I think it has a useful utility in the game, so...
Well, it kind of helps decrease, like situationally decrease that
spike damage?
Yeah. Just the lethality of the game. So no, actually, I was wrong. And it's enhanced resistance, and it is one of those adaptive physiologies.
Oh, nice.
So
that's really
good. Excuse me. So you can't stack these, but these are just different options that are available. On the monster side, you can give a monster a 5-up invuln. Mm-hmm. And in addition to getting the 5-up invuln, you double the number of wounds when you're looking at it's like damage chart. So the damage table. So your monsters that don't typically have an invuln save, so your like Trigons, Trigon Primes, your Carnifexes, now they can get a 5-up invuln and double their wounds when looking at the damage table, which means that they fight at the higher stats for longer. So that's cool. You can give a monster synapse, so you could have a Carnifex that's got synapse, and it doesn't just gain synapse, but it also gains Shadow in the Warp. So if you've got cool. a frontline, beat stick Carnifex that you're shoving down your opponent's throat, that's another Shadow in the Warp node for it. I think my favorite for the monsters, though, is Murderous Size.
Okay.
So before the battle, select one melee weapon that this model is equipped with. Until the end of the battle, add 1 to the strength and damage characteristics of that weapon. Improve the armor penetration characteristics of that weapon by 1. So you're looking at the massive Scything Talons on a Trigon or a Trigon Prime being strength 8, -4 AP, damage D6 +1.
That's crazy good.
Yeah. So, it's not quite, we're not talking like doctrines and sub-doctrines like the Space Marines got, but I think it's, for lack of a better term, giving some teeth back to the Tyranid and giving you that flexibility that Tyranid's players have been playing with for a long time.
Of course, yeah.
And then, there's some other things in the book that are kind of cool. So if you don't like the hive fleets that exist, they give you like custom hive fleet adaptations. So there's a handful where you can pick 2. So I think some of the ones that stood out. So there's one where a model with this adaptation regains 1 lost wound at the start of your turn. So, let's say you're running a bunch of monsters and Tyranid Warriors, you're just getting free wounds back every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another one that was... so Prey Sight, if a monster unit with this adaptation makes a charge move, is charged, or performs a heroic intervention, then until the end of the turn, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in that unit, add 1 to the hit roll. So just going back to the Trigons and the Trigon Primes, they hit on 3s normally, and because they have multiple pairs of Scything Talons, they get to reroll 1s. Well, now you're, 7 attacks that hit on 2s, reroll 1s. So basically all 7 of those potentially strength 8 AP, that's 4 d6 plus 1 damage. So I am kind of a fan of the existing high fleets as they are. Like the Jormungandr one is great because your units that are stuck in the ground that you have to deploy count as being in cover without having to do the prepared defenses stratagem.
Yep.
And then they have the pre-deployment stratagem where you can put any unit in a tunnel and have it come up with the Trigons. Like, that's great. And then the super popular Kraken, right? Roll 3 dice and take the highest on your advance rolls, and the ability to fall back and charge is like crazy good. But if you wanted to try something different or kind of make up something, I feel like there's some stuff in there that you could maybe build a list around that's going to be a little different. And then so there were some new psychic powers for each of the high fleets, which were pretty cool. Just adding some more flavor and some more fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And then new stratagems too. And I think the one that really popped out for me was there's a stratagem for Tyranid Warriors. So where did it go? Oh, come on. Unyielding Chitin. So use this stratagem in your charge phase or your opponent's shooting phase when a Tyranid Prime or Tyranid Warriors unit from your army is chosen as the target for an attack made with a ranged weapon. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon against that unit, reduce the damage characteristic of that weapon by 1 to a minimum of 1 for that attack. So
you have an Ironstone.
Yeah, so all of the it's one CP. So all of the damage 2 weapons that you're throwing into Tyranid Warriors to try to take them down in 2 shots, well, now it takes 3. Or your damage 3 weapons. And I think that's the real kicker, right? So you want to hit a 3 wound model with a damage 3 weapon. Well, now it takes 2 damage 3 shots to take out one Tyranid Warrior, which is, that's pretty critical. So I think there's some stuff in there. So, with Chapter Approved reducing the price of Tyranid Warriors, and then all of these different adaptations that are available. I think there could be some fun kind of, it's fluffy that they're adapting. So that's cool. But so the big news for me, I'm a longtime Grey Knights player, and they have floundered in the current edition. They did really well when their codex came out because they and Death Guard were the only ones with codexes, and thus the only ones with stratagems. And so that was fun for like 3 weeks. But then Primaris came out, and I just don't think that Games Workshop knows quite how to handle the Grey Knights. Like, I think that they tried to do them like they've always done them, but they, being their standalone codex, so they lost all of the kind of support elements that the Demon Hunters Codex gave them, where you could take an Inquisitor Lord and that unlocked Inquisitorial Stormtroopers as troops choices, so you could build this mixed force that was still, within a single codex and, was still like a fluffy, unified force. Mm-hmm. When they removed all of those models and threw them into the Imperial Agents, sub-codexes or White Dwarf supplements or whatever, it kind of pulled some teeth out of the list, and then the Grey Knights just didn't work as well as a standalone army. And so they have made some pretty drastic points reductions. So I was looking at my the 1,000 points that I brought to our doubles list.
Mm-hmm.
And it dropped by over 130 points.
So wow.
More than
a unit of Strike Squad.
Yeah, well, it's more than a whole other unit of Strike Squad because the amount of points that Strike Squad's dropped by. So just so they brought Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knights down again. Strike Squads are down by 5 points base, but they made all of the force weapons cost a point, so it's really a 4-point drop, and then it's only a 3-point drop, I'm assuming, if you're using Nemesis Force Falchions, because you buy 2 of them. Before all of those weapons were 0 points. So that's cool. It's cool to see them kind of mitigate you're not paying for the force weapon when you buy the special weapon, even though you don't get the force weapon anymore. And then Terminators went down a significant margin. So I think they went down by 7, which is really a net 6 drop because of the cost of the force weapons.
Mm-hmm. And those Terminators across the board too. Like that wasn't just Grey Knight Terminators, which was nice.
I think Grey Knight Terminators saw the biggest drop, but I think
probably
other Terminators still saw a drop. I mean, so you said Chaos Space Marines went from 13 to 11?
Yes.
Yeah. So the base cost for a Strike Marine went from 19 to 14. But then you still have to pay for the Stormbolter and the Force Weapon. So, you're looking at 17 points per, Strike Marine, which is, I feel like that's a little better. I'm really excited to see kind of what I can put together there, but I'm going to wait to do that because of the teaser that we got from the 40K open day. So anybody that hasn't seen it, Psychic Awakening Book 4 is called Ritual of the Damned. There's a video. And they kind of did the rotating faction symbol like they've done in the past, and it's the Thousand Suns and the Thousand Thuns, the Dark Angels, and the Grey Knights. So I don't think we're going to see Grey Knight Primaris, but I'm hopeful that we'll see, something akin to the Doctrines or some revamp to the Psychic Brotherhood or some additional rules for Grey Knights to kind of give them that oomph back. Personally, on a wish list, it would be nice to see them move away from the baby smite at 12 inches more towards what the Thousand Suns have. So, like a real baby smite. So, 1 mortal wound, unless you roll an 11 or a 12 or a 10, 11 or 12, whatever the rule is, and then you get
it's
D3
over a 10.
Mortals. Yeah. So so to get D3 mortals, and then. It really irks me that specifically a Grey Knight Librarian. So, chapter full of psychers. A librarian is supposed to be the psychic might of a chapter. Still only does 1 mortal wound on a smite. It would be nice to see at least the librarians just get a normal smite. So a D3 mortals or a D6 mortals on a 11 plus. But,
yeah. That makes sense.
And, really, that should go for all of the characters. A Grey Knight, even a Brother Captain, is, as potent a psyker as a basic Space Marine Librarian. Knows one, casts one, denies one. So
I think the hardest thing that Grey Knights suffer with, right, is that they all have these psychic abilities, right?
Right.
So you can... The difference between Grey Knights and Thousand Suns is Thousand Suns, when the sorcerer dies in a unit of Thousand Suns Marines, they can't cast spells anymore.
Right.
So they're subject to getting sniped out and all this other stuff. So there's a little bit of balancing mechanics there. I think the problem with Grey Knights is that they, like you said, they just don't know how to balance them because you can't treat them like a normal Marine because they're not.
Right.
But there's also if you bring them too cheap, they overtake the meta because they can become so powerful with all the different psychic buffs and stuff. So it's hard. It's a hard it's a hard army to balance, and like as frustrating as it is, like I don't know how you get it right unless you just bring back the Demon Hunters Codex kind of format.
Well, there's some other thoughts out there. So I've seen, bring back bespoke powers. So put psychic powers on their data sheets instead of having them choose them from a psychic discipline. So all strike squads get access to X, all Terminator squads get access to Y. I think something that would be a big help is, one of the big differences between the Grey Knights and the Thousand Sons. So both armies that are chock-a-block full of psychers, right? You're running tons of sorcerers, and you've got your rubric squads with the aspiring sorcerers. In the rubric squads in Thousand Sons, is they have 3 disciplines to choose from?
They do. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and Grey Knights have 1.
Well,
even just opening up the Librarius discipline for Grey Knights for the characters, let the squads use the Sanctic discipline, and then let the characters use Sanctic and Librarius. Or, what we'll probably see is another discipline come out for the Grey Knights, and that may make a huge difference.
So to kind of circle back around on the different disciplines that the Thousand Sons can use. So the aspiring sorcerers can only pick from the Thousand Sons lore. Like they can't use the other ones.
Okay.
So they are required to take a spell from the Thousand Sons specific lore. The demon princes can take demonology, take the demons focused, the Tzeentch demons spells, or they have the full array of spells.
Okay, so they get the Thousand Sons, the Heretic Astartes, and the Tzeentch demons. Okay.
And then the sorcerers get only Heretic Astartes and only
Thousand Sons.
Okay. Unless they're on a disc, which they gain the demon keyword, and then they
in which case they get the Tzeentch demon spells.
So you have to kind of do some qualifications to get some of the other ones. So it's kind of but yes, like I agree with what you said. Like give them something that is exclusively on their data sheet, since the whole unit is psychers and not just one model.
Yep. I would love to see like the old Warpquake come back. So they are they the Incursors or the Inners?
We talking about the new
Vanguard Marines that have the ones that have the 12-inch, the ones with the 12-inch bubble of no deep strike.
No, that's the Infiltrators.
The Infiltrators. So back in the day, 5th edition Grey Knights Codex, they had a power called Warpquake. So the Strike Marines, you could put them down, and then this was back when deep strikes scattered. Yep. If you landed within a 12-inch radius of the strike squad, it was an automatic mishap.
Yeah, mishap, yeah.
Yeah, which meant that the unit there was potential for the unit to just be deleted. Mm-hmm. And then, I wouldn't want anything like that. That's a little too much. But even just that 12-inch buffer, right? You cannot land within 12 inches of this unit. Mm-hmm. Even something like that would help, because then it forces, either, boxcar charges, or, it gives, an opportunity for you to weather the storm, and then you get to charge on your own terms.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you'll see in that new book is you probably will get doctrines, because they gave doctrines to Blood Angels. They'll end up giving doctrines to Dark Angels and also Space Wolves. I guarantee it. So it only makes sense that they get doctrines too, which just the doctrines alone are going to immensely help Grey Knights.
Oh yeah, that tactical doctrine pushing all of the Stormbolters to AP1.
Correct. Like I think that's kind of a missing piece that you guys that doesn't rely on psychic powers, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, so that's another thing that would be sweet. Would just increase the points for Grey Knight Stormbolters by 1 across the board, and just let us have Cybolt ammo.
Yeah, pushing to AP2 though on a bajillion and a half shots would be.
Well, yeah. So I don't need doctrines if you just give me Cybolt ammo.
Yeah, but I think
then I'm strength 5, and then that's a whole other can of worms. So I'm shooting strength 5 Stormbolters from my Terminators so they all get 4 shots at 24 inches all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I guess you could do it like they do it with Death Watch, right? You either get Bolt of Discipline or you get the special issue ammo.
Yeah, I mean, having to choose. I mean, Death Watch are a good kind of. They're kind of an analogous chapter to look at, right? So they have a lot of cool, very niche special rules. Like a whole unit of them can take storm shields and storm bolters. Like, what kind of crap is that?
Right.
But like, yes, the specialist ammunition, being able to elect what you want to use, I think is a great way that you could kind of augment what you're saying, like having the Cybolt ammunition or using the Doctrine special rule.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am really excited because I've always loved Thousand Suns, so I'm excited to see what they do with them. I've got a bunch of Zongor that I have from my Beastman army, like, and a bunch of beasts. Like, it'd be easy for me to just pick up that book and be like, oh, Thousand Suns, here you go.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what that one has in store too, and I know Jason is too. Even though he's sold off most of his Dark Angels, he's still got some Raven Wings sitting around. So I'm interested to see what they do with the Dark Angels too.
Yeah. So breathe some life into the kind of the sub factions of the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
Do something to bring the Raven Wing and the Death Wing back. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to kind of look on the horizon and kind of touch on the other half of the Blood of Baal book, which is the Blood Angels, right? They got completely pulled up to speed from, which is amazing, and it's something that they've needed for a long time.
Yeah.
Because
so they have doctrines.
They have doctrines now,
and then they have a super doctrine.
They do, which is really good.
Yeah, they get an additional attack in the assault phase.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then they updated they changed, it's not the Red Thirst anymore. I can't remember what they call it now, but they all have a bespoke rule where not only do they get a +1 to wound and the turn that they are charged or perform a heroic intervention, but they also get an additional attack.
Yeah,
so
that's their super tactic. That's their super trait. Is that one.
Yeah.
So like, and it happens in the assault doctrine.
No, but there's more. It's not just it's not just the super doctrine. They have a new rule. The Red Thirst changed. It's not just +1 to wound in the assault phase. It's also +1 attack in the assault phase.
Oh, is it? I didn't get that.
Yeah. I'll look it up and just confirm, but
they always get +1 to wound if they charge, are charged, or heroically intervene. Like that's their +1 to wound. That's been their one that they've had since the beginning, which makes Thunderhammer Smash Captains terrifying. Why.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Did you find it?
So I did find it. So the Red Thirst. All right. So the Savage Echoes is their super doctrine. That's what. Yes. Okay. But they did get an additional ability in the Red Thirst, and it's not as good as +1 to attack, but it's pretty good. When a unit with this ability advances or makes a charge move, add 1 to the advance or charge roll.
Oh, getting more reliable charges when you want to be in melee is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And then there's some other stuff in there I think there's some additional stratagems and stuff that are going to let you get, rerolls on your charges and then the kicker, I guess, is going to be, right. So their chaplains now have access to all of the litanies. So you're looking at a potential.
Well, they have a special litany table, don't they?
Yeah, but then they have the bespoke ones too, or the original ones too. So you're looking at potential like +3 to your charge roll. So,
yep.
If you can manage to scoot a chaplain forward and then drop near the chaplain, you're looking at a 6-inch rerollable charge out of a deep strike.
But now they made the Sanguinary Priest with a jump pack a thing, like for real.
Oh yeah.
So you just got to put that Sanguinary Priest tucked in behind your Death Company, and then you are good to go. No problemo. Because he's protected, he moves as fast as your Death Company do. And they still have, I think, a stratagem that allows them to go up the table on the first turn, like prior to the first turn or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but they got Death Company Intercessors, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's a new way to do it.
So many attacks.
Yeah. I think the regular Death Company are still probably better. Because they end up getting like 6 attacks or something like that a piece, and they can all take Thunderhammers, as opposed to maybe just the champion or the sergeant taking a Thunderhammer.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they can all take chainswords and stuff too, so they can take 2 chainswords each. So, but anyway, I'm just excited for that, and then obviously the new Mephiston model is just gorgeous. Yes. Like, they literally took the old art piece and turned it into a model, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you've seen the alternate pose, but there's actually the one where he's like wiping his mouth too.
Yes.
So there's like the one with the pistol, and then there's another one where he's like wiping his mouth, just like the piece of artwork, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. And of course he's got like the new Primaris stat line. So 6 wounds, 5 attacks.
Yeah, he's essentially a demon prince. Like that's what I've always compared him to. Like he's a demon prince.
He's not as crazy as he used to be in 7th edition. He's only strength and toughness 5 now instead of strength and toughness 6, but still.
Yeah, but he's good. And then I think that's really all we've got for the latest and greatest for 40K, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. So that covers blood and bugs. So we'll take a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about some Everchosen.
Jerod, do you feel the call of chaos?
Yes.
Well, that's good, because there's a brand new Battletome going to be on your doorstep next week.
Your doorstep.
It will be on my doorstep.
Fingers crossed it'll be on Jason's doorstep.
We hope so. I think Jason and I have very different approaches to this army, which is good.
Yes.
But the new Slaves to Darkness Battletome is coming out. If any of you that listen to the show follow regularly Age of Sigmar stuff, I'm sure you'll know about a lot of the stuff that we may kind of touch on. I'm not going to go in super depth with it because there's many other resources that you can do that with. But the cool thing about this book, and Jerod, I'll get your impressions first before I kind of dive into what I like about it.
Sure.
But tell me what intrigued you the most about this new Battletome.
So with the pre-order for the Battletome, you're getting the endless spells, which look cool. We don't know anything about those, but they look awesome. The like skull that's like breathing fire and blowing up the ground, like that's awesome. But we're also getting double-sized kits for the Warcry Warbands, and so I was really curious about those, and they kind of gave some more information in one of the Warhammer community preview articles. Within the Battletome, there are specific sub-factions, and there is one that is essentially, a band of, chaos lords or aspiring lords, who are bringing their various tribes together to create an army.
Talking about the Ravagers.
Yep. And one of the command abilities for the Ravagers is you can summon in marauders, marauder horsemen, or cultists. And everybody's like, well, what's a cultist? Well, let me tell you what a cultist is.
I'm glad you asked.
So all of the Warcry Warbands have
the cultist
Age of Sigmar battle war scrolls, and on their war scrolls is the cultist keyword. So with this command ability, you can summon in 10 Chaos Marauders, 5 Marauder Horsemen, or a unit of 10 cultists. So you can bring in a unit of 10 Iron Golems, or a unit of 10 Cypher Lords, or
Or a
whatever.
unit of 10 untamed beasts if you're Jason.
Yes, or like all the units of 10 untamed beasts. And which is super cool because you can bring them on from the table edge. So any table edge wholly within 6 inches of the table edge and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So your classic outflank. Which
when
is
you learned how
super
powerful
cool.
that was when at Nova.
Yes. Yeah, so bringing up Beastmen in somebody's backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Walking through the Age of Sigmar GT and looking at these conga line ridiculous deployments, knowing because they knew that like somebody could outflank or they could summon. So like being able to put in models where you want them is pretty critical. But one of the things that they talked about on the live stream on Twitch was how they've kind of simplified the war scrolls for the warbands in Age of Sigmar. So from what I gathered, they're not going to be as complicated as they currently are with the like, you have to take one of this and one of that and one of that. Basically what they're going to say is that it's a unit and it's, they're going to give like different weapon profiles, but the models themselves, other than probably the, like the ogre for the iron golems, like obviously he's going to have kind of a different stat line, but you're not going to end up with this war scroll that is comprised of, 4 or 5 different profiles, which is going to help those models be played, which is going to add this really cool kind of visual theme to these Ravagers based armies. So I'm excited to see kind of how that really plays itself out. Really excited for Jason and how that plays out.
Yeah, and it's actually, so I'm actually pulling up one of the war scrolls now. Just give me 1 second. We'll kind of walk through one of them. Speaking of Jason, we'll talk about the Untamed Beasts. So currently, the way that the Untamed Beasts work, there's a ton of different like models within it. So now it's been simplified, like Jerod said, to where they have a missile weapon and then hunting weapons. So their missile weapon is just 1 attack, and I think you can have 1. Yep. So you can have 1 in every 9 models in this unit, but it can be a First Fang, which has a jagged harpoon attack. It's 8 inches. It's 1 attack, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, -1 rend, and 2 damage. So this gives them a nice little utility that they can do, and then they all have just 1 attack. They're not as good as like the Marauders,
right?
Which I think is cool. I really wish they had updated the Marauder sculpts. They're just old. I wish they had done that when they did the Chaos Warriors as well, because they just look like old, like WWE or WWF wrestler models, like wrestler toys that we used to have back in the day. You remember, like Randy Savage?
Oh yeah.
Like real beefy, like completely abnormally sculpted. That's what they remind me of. They've always reminded me of that. But I think it's really cool that they've incorporated them, and they've actually, the price of them is surprising, because the Warcry Warband is $50, and it comes with the cards to play Warcry.
Right.
This is $65 for 2 times the models.
Right.
So, for $15 more, you get double the models. So, like, if you're really into Warcry, and you want to have a bunch of different like options, like if you want 3 Rock Tusk Prowlers, buy your $50 Untamed Beasts, and then buy your $65 Untamed Beasts, and have 3 of each, which is really cool. So anyway, what else kind of stuck out to you?
I mean, I think that was the biggest thing that kind of stuck out for me was just that how they're like really incorporating the Warcry Warbands into the Age of Darkness. So they're not going to be battle line, but they kind of explained that on the stream that, they've kind of justified that in the fluff that, these Warcry Warbands, anybody that's familiar with the lore, they don't even really know that they're worshiping chaos.
Right.
So, they're not fully fledged chaos devotees. I mean, even in the same way that like a chaos marauder is, a chaos marauder knows like, I am on the path to glory. I am following these dark gods because I think that they provide, a better answer than Sigmar or whatever the case is. So, it would not make sense for a chaos lord or like a dark oath chieftain or somebody, somebody that is fully dedicated to the gods to, include these aspirants, in the core force of their army. And so I'm like, it would have been really cool to see the Warcry Warbands be able to be battle line, because I think it would have even like created, even more diversity in Slaves to Darkness armies. But I like that they are at least putting something forth to explain why you can't do it.
Yeah, I think for Jason's point of view, because I know that he's been interested and expressed interest in collecting these, is he can still do exactly what he wants to do, even without those Warcry Warbands being battle line, though.
Yes.
Because what he really wanted, what he's expressed that he wanted was, a lot of the barbarian type of stuff, which is the Untamed Beasts, and then some cavalry to support that. So the new cavalry models, the new knights are great. But even like they're not even that old. The Marauder Horseman models are really good.
Yeah.
Like they're really sharp looking kits, and they're older, but they're not. They came out in between the Chaos Knights and some of the newer kits like the Juggernauts and stuff like that. They're right in that range. So they're not that old of a kit, but at the same time, like they hold up really well, and he could use those as battle line because those are battle line. Or what I would suggest to him would be to buy some chariots, because I just think chariots in conjunction with those big blobs of barbarians would just look really cool.
Yeah.
Because the Chaos Chariot with horses is a battle line choice. So that would, and they're cheap.
So that's cool. Yep.
They're really, really cheap too. I think they're like 80 points or something like that for each one. So you take 3 of those and you're done with your battle line, and then you can just throw as many barbarians on the field as you want.
That's true. Yep.
So that's just some things to think about. And we'll talk to him about that. I'll whisper some sweet nothings in his ear about it.
I like it.
But so to kind of touch on the warband that you like, that you thought was really cool, which is the Ravagers, they have a really cool mechanic, and it ties into that summoning mechanic that you're talking about, where the way that their warband works. So you have the Ravagers, you have the Kabbalists, there's another one that's like mostly monster based, and then you have the Everchosen warbands. So that the Ravagers warbands, they can change their general each turn, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually make it so if everything goes well and things line up, you can actually summon 50 different models to the board. So you just rotate your general every turn, and they summon the 10.
Yep.
So there's some really cool functionality there, just to like, I mean, that's a lot of wounds to put back on the board.
Yeah.
If you can really like line it up right, which is really an interesting prospect for an army list.
Yeah.
And then the Kabbalists are all the wizards and stuff in the army, and I think you'll see some really cool themed armies come out for them. Where you'll use those cultist units as fodder for some of their abilities, where they can sacrifice people. to get like bonuses to their spell casting, and like you can move an endless spell with them, which is just a really cool and unique mechanic that we haven't really seen. Being able to move an endless spell outside of the very start of the hero phase.
Yes.
That's crucial.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be theirs. It can be any endless spell.
Yeah. It's a nice purple sun of Xerxes you have there.
Well, and it's also really crucial against the Bone Reapers, because only Bone Reapers can control their spells.
That's true.
So, like, being able to say, nope, I'm going to move your spell.
I wonder if that... See, I don't know if the Bone Reapers are actually called endless spells, though.
I don't know. But
I will have to look it up, but that could be pretty baller.
Yep. So being able to do that, I think, is, if it works that way, which was my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Is really, really cool. And then the other one is the monsters based warband, and it's like demon princes in there. I think they all heal a wound at the beginning of a round, or D3 wounds at the beginning of the round. And then they have an ability where they can like black out a piece of terrain.
Yeah.
Where you can't see through it, which is really a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Being able to like manipulate the battlefield and stuff like that. And then last but not least, my boy.
Certainly not least.
Certainly not the least. He got expensive. So Archaon went up in points quite a bit, but he got a stat bump in a lot of different areas, and he has all the marks of chaos. He actually gained some other keywords. He gained the Hedonite of Slaanesh keyword.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. He's got all the different. So he's got Maggotkin, Hedonite, Blade of Corn, and Disciple of Tzeentch on him. So he can be used in all the other books just like normal. But him in a Hedonites of Slaanesh army is scary because he has the Hedonite keyword now. He can fight twice.
Boo.
Just like.
Oh, and his sword.
Yes, and the sword got better. His sword improved to Ren 2 finally.
Yeah.
But some of the cool things that come with that book are the auras. So he can only pick one. He can't use all of them.
Right.
But he can pick one of the auras at the beginning of the game to affect units within the army. His range on that increases to 18 inches instead of 12.
Oof.
So he's got like essentially what amounts to a 10-inch base, right?
Yeah.
Plus 18 inches out to either side, which is just a huge footprint.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at almost
like 46 inches total.
Yeah, a 4 foot.
Yeah, it's
radius.
It's massive.
Or so if he's in the circle.
Yeah, if he's in the middle of the table, just about touches everything.
Yeah.
In range.
That's awesome.
And then Slayer of Kings, like for those who don't know, if you roll 2 6s to wound with the Slayer of Kings, which is his sword, it automatically slays a model. Like they don't make an armor save, you just pick the model up.
Yep.
Which is crazy good.
Yeah. Unless it's Gotrek. And then he takes
Gotrek.
And then he takes a wood.
Yeah. But then the Everchosen warband, if you take it, you can take Varangard as battle line.
Yep. And each Varangard is what, 7 wounds?
They're 5 wounds each.
5 wounds, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a hero.
They're essentially like they're a hero, but they can now take marks, which is awesome. So any aura that you pick for Archaon, like you want to line that mark up with the Varangard. So like for Mark of Corn, for example, you get to reroll your failed hit rolls of 1, and then you add +1 to wound rolls for them if the character's your general. Which if you're taking Archaon, he's going to be your general anyway.
Yep.
So
at least he should be.
Yeah, at least he should be. But they got some teeth, especially in that particular warband, because they came up with the different circles of Varangard, which are a thing in the lore, where you can select one of the circles from the Varangard, and each circle does something different. So, like 8th circle, for example, gives you the fly keyword. So, like that piece of artwork that you see where it's got Archaon and all these flying Varangard, you're like, how is that happening? Well, that's how. And then the one that I think will be most popular will be the 6th circle, which gives you an additional damage on your weapons when you charge.
Oof.
So now if you're taking ensorcelled weapons, you have 6 attacks, and with Archaon on the board, you're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and then you are getting +1 to your wound rolls, so you're wounding on 2s.
Yeah.
With a -1 rend 2 damage attack. So, and that's just the rider.
Yeah.
And then the steed attacks too, and he has a D3 damage weapon too. But
Yeah.
they have an innate ability to fight twice. So
Yeah.
So like each one of them they can only do it once a game, and it has to be at the end of the combat phase.
Right.
But you can elect them to fight again. So, and that's a flat ability. So if they charge in and they decide to do it that turn, they're getting to do it all again at +1 damage.
Yeah.
And then the Nurgle buff, actually, if you roll a 6 to wound, not like an unmodified 6 to wound, they do an additional damage.
Ooh.
So you could potentially be doing 3 damage a swing.
Yikes.
Which
that's
is
pretty good.
crazy good. But then, so that's where my head is, because I have the Archaon model, and
yeah, you do.
I need to get it out and paint it and play with it. So Jason's going to go Horde, and I'm probably going to go Hyper Elite, which will be fun because we don't really have a Hyper Elite army in the group. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope Jason is too, because I think that he's talked about it for a while, and I'm hoping that this is the little nudge that he needs to get him over the edge.
Yep. That'd be sweet.
But anyway, so Jerod, did you have any other? What worries you most about the book?
What
do you have any worries? What's your biggest concern with it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I have any concerns, because I just want Jason to play Age of Sigmar.
Fair enough.
So if it's the most OP book that's out there, and it gets him to play Age of Sigmar, then so be it.
Well, if he touches it, we know it'll turn OP. That's just kind of how things work with him.
No, it took a long time for Dark Angels to be OP, and then they weren't OP anymore. So
this is true.
They were OP for like half an edition.
I would just really want him to play it. My concern with it is just like there's one particular ability that Archaon has in the Everchosen Warband that is really, really game defining. And that is the ability
the dice
to choose who goes first or second.
Based on what you roll. I mean,
correct, but it's informed
roll.
information, right?
Yeah.
And you can still roll. Like, you don't have to reveal it. You can still roll. So for those who don't know, there's a ability that you gain in that particular warband that at the beginning of the turn, Archaon gains a command ability. You use it, and you roll a dice. On a 1, 2, or 3, your opponent takes the next turn. It goes first on the next turn. On a 4, 5, or 6, you go first the next turn. Which in a game like Age of Sigmar, where you have the potential to have a double turn, is just massive information to have. So that's my biggest concern about the book, and we'll play it. I think you and I playing through it will help determine how we feel about it. I think it will be something that, if played correctly, can be extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And will be something that high level players will use in tournaments and stuff. But you can kind of tip your hand a little bit, or you can bluff, which
Right.
is something that I think is an element in this game that is there, but it's not a gamble, right? So like,
Right.
part of the fun of Age of Sigmar is being like, man, if I can get up here and get pressure and get a double turn, this is game, right? And it's the if, right? But
Right.
if I'm playing and I'm pushing myself forward and I'm like, I'm going to curb stomp you,
I'm going to get the double turn.
like that
And
is
there's
happening.
Nothing you can do to
There's
stop me.
not a thing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want that to create negative play experiences for people.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, and that was what I was hoping that you would say, but
Oh, I had completely forgotten that was a thing.
and that's okay. That's okay.
Yep.
But
what you're
that's
here
gonna, yeah. I'm the resident heretic, terrible chaos person.
Yep.
But I'm really excited about the book. I hope that we get to get some games in with it. We will get some games in with it. There's just no hope for me. Like, it will happen.
Right.
But until we do that, I think we're gonna wrap this segment up and close the show out.
And we're back, and that'll wrap us up for the evening. So, as always, we'd like to say thanks for taking the time to listen. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and as we're coming to the close of the year, we're looking maybe to get one more episode out before 2020. Fingers crossed, and if not, we'll see everyone in the new year. We've been a little slow on the socials lately, but I think with the Feast of Bones challenge that Trace and I have going on, hopefully you'll start to see some pictures pop up. Maybe getting some Warcry Warbands painted up. I know Jason's posted his newly painted Warbands, so hopefully we'll get some in-action shots of them up there. But if you're looking to follow us on social media, if you're not already, we are Battle Mallet Podcast on Facebook, Battle Mallet 1 on Twitter, and Battle Mallet PCast on Instagram. We have a Discord that is a place to come, and you can show off your pictures and chat with us and ask questions. If you like what you're hearing and you want others to have the chance to find our podcast, one of the best ways to do that is to give us reviews on Facebook and on, I guess it's Apple Podcasts now, not iTunes. It's the best way to kind of
really?
hit the algorithm. Yeah, I think they discontinued iTunes or whatever. So they call it Apple Podcasts. Yeah, who knew? Windows user here.
Well, I didn't know. I have an iPhone.
Yeah. But giving us reviews and stars on those platforms hits those algorithms and kind of surfaces our content. So we'd appreciate anything that you can do there. Just one more shout out for the event coming up Thursday, December 12th at Atomic Empire. I'll be there probably around 5:30. I know Trace and Jason should be there around 6, and we'll be there from 6 until either the party closes or the store closes, whichever happens first. So come play some Warhammer Underworlds with us. Bring your beat stick deck. Bring your fun deck. If you've never played, come show up. We'll give you a deck. We'll give you models. And we'll play, eat some snacks, drink some beer, have a good time.
The show.
Yeah. So this has been episode 18. So for the Battle Mallet Podcast, tonight we are 2 dads, and that's it.
2 dads and a Jamaican
bobsled team,
I guess. And
no, I guess there's a 2-man bobsled. Jason and Danny can be a 2-man bobsled team.
Yes.
The end.
The Jamaican bobsled team.
So this is Jerod signing out.
This is Trace signing out. Thanks, guys.
Peace. Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats. Oh, you're drinking. I can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, get your drink on.
I got my drink on.
Okay.
It's rum and coke.
Rum and coke. Hashtag rooftop bar.
Yes, if only.
If only.